Well, we're back at it again. We want to continue our thoughts around research and moving towards certain research methodologies that exist within your particular textbooks that you're reading. And so we're going to cover, again, qualitative and quantitative design theory. And what I would like to also do in this mini lecture is review again the scientific method that is actually helpful in our research process. And as we move toward proposal, the idea that surrounds our topic to the finalization of our research dissertation. So let's just explore right now the scientific method as it relates to research design. And as you work through any of the methodology, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, you still need to work through this process to arrive at your particular topic that you're interested in studying. So the first thing you need to do is identify a need. I often have found that the need arises out of one's passion. What are you most passionate about? What interests you in terms of topics and areas of research? And I'd like to just offer that the boundaries for your research topic need to encompass both organization and then leadership. Those two social theoretical constructs will help you and also guide you in the path that you should go in terms of your dissertation proposal, defense, and your finalization of your dissertation. So identify a need. What particular arises in your particular area that you live, the ministry maybe that you work for, or organization that you're employed with? What in the area of leadership arises out of the reading of the different things that you've been exposed to along the way that you believe needs to be researched? And so from there, you develop that theoretical foundation. Ultimately, in the background is the design theory that you're wanting to proceed in, but the theoretical, what's driving the topic. So in this regard, we're telling you that it needs to be around organization, it needs to be around leadership. Now, how you get there and how you arrive there is going to be up to you and the gates that you go through, but those are the guidelines. Now, what does that mean within CIU and how you study your methodology? So if you're working in the field of Christian education, you can study that because it involves an organization. And if you're looking at teachers, well, teachers are leaders. So again, you get the idea here how your topic can be arranged and summarized. What we don't want you to do is we don't want you to do a humanities-based research where you're studying a particular passage and doing exegetical work. That's not what this program is about. This is a social inquiry program, and we're looking at a population. We're on to study that population, and we're looking at all the literature that's been written. And so that gets in a little bit of the humanities side for those who are interested in literature. But we're allowing the literature to serve as a voice for validity, and we're wanting to make sure that you cover that. We also are asking you that as you develop the theoretical foundation, in the back of your mind, you're thinking through the biblical foundation as a biblical worldview. What does the Bible have to say regarding the topic that you're researching? Does it inform your topic? Is it in the background? Does it provide any theological underpinnings that would support validity? And so for those doing more religious or denominational studies or a theological spiritual formation area of study, you're going to have to get into the theological, of course, and but not to disregard the theoretical foundation that's necessary for your research. So once you move to the theoretical, you then move toward the research questions. You arrive at least 3 to 4. Sometimes, depending on the topic, you may need to go to 5 or 6. But just remember, for every research question, you have to do data mining. You have to you have to do the data analytics and look at the emergent themes for every question. And if you're doing qualitative, you probably have chosen interview questions as your instrument, and then you're going to have to analyze those as well. And so it becomes really difficult, and the aspect of timeline changes depending on your methodology that you take. Now we go to the design study that I just mentioned. What's your methodology? Are you going to go quantitative? For some of you who are more mathematical in your mindset, you might lend toward a quantitative research analysis. Some of you are more narrative based and you love ideas and people's expressions, you're probably going to like the qualitative design theory. But you need to choose which one is best for your topic, and the population also matters with the design methodology. If it's quantitative, you need more of a sampling population. If it's qualitative, you can do very well with a small population that you select. Typically, depending on the qualitative design set, you may even do less with that. We often just say, hey, we like for you to get to 30 individuals that you could survey or interview, not survey, but interview in terms of the instrument that you're using. But if you're doing a case study, it might be a smaller, and even a smaller population that you're working with. And again, it's best to work with your mentee, who's going to be reading your dissertation and helping you along each of that aspect of your research. So don't go rogue. Make sure you're walking with your mentee, your mentor on your research topic. And also the methodologist at CIU will help you with your research proposal. From there, after you define the methodology that you're wanting to set on, you need to then begin to collect your data. And that is looking things from a mathematical, statistical inquiry to that of what people are saying versus their words, written statements, direct comments from your interview. So again, depending on the research methodology, the way you go about reporting your data is going to change, and how you arrive at your analyzing the data is going to change as well. And then finally, you report your data, and that largely is chapter 4. And then you'll make some application in chapter 5 and close out your research as you come to the conclusion. So we want to move away from now the scientific method explained and look at some quality or criteria that a researcher will use in ensuring that their research has validity or has quality that to safeguard the ethics of its research. So let me give you 4. Number 1, there needs to be precision. There needs to be accuracy. There needs to be reliability, and finally validity. Let me just talk about validity as it's important to gaining the right interpretation, the right feelings of that population, and as expressed within your writing. Now, this goes back to precision and accuracy. Those are important words to your research, and this is why we are going to push you as writers. Can you say that statement with precision, with accuracy, or are you giving a biased statement? Can you support that from the literature, or is that your statement? Is that your idea? And again, that goes back to bias and ensuring that there's quality and validity to your writing or to your research. So let me start off with validity. This comes right from your textbook that you're reading this week. Validity is defined as the extent to which the outcome accurately answers the state research questions of the study. So if you have 3 or 4 research questions, are you answering those questions in your research? And so this goes back to the focus of your research design, and this again establishes validity. What you will do and what you won't do gets into the limitations and delimitations of your research. Now let's talk about precision and accuracy for this moment in time. You will review your hypothesis. This is what we call operationalization, and what we are trying to do is, what is that researchable hypothesis that you can test? It arrives as the problem statement in your research, and you're trying to harness all those ideas and into 3 to 4 researchable questions that emerges up from your research, from your study, that, okay, no one studied this, I want to study it with this population set, and therefore you're allowed to do so. Now, precision, as it relates to dissertation writing, is concerned with fineness and the distinction between attributes of the variable. Again, using good words associated in your writing as you're writing each sentence. Does it clearly demonstrate precision about that particular population? And then that's why sentences need to be clearly written in such a way that represents clarity, You don't use ambiguous words or descriptors, but you arrive at the precision of what your population is accurately resembles as. So for example, a man in his 20s, rather be very precise with the wording and say it this way: a man um, who is 21, or a man who is 23. So you're using precision in your words rather than just mere general statements, so that the reader still doesn't know exactly what you're talking about or writing about. Now, reliability is the quality measurement that you would use in looking at the same data set that you're intending to collect over time. And so you repeat the process over and over with the phenomenon that you're studying. So researcher questions such as techniques that you'll use, for example, if you're using a qualitative methodology, in your interviews, you would repeat with the same population the same interview questions, and you would do that over a series of times. So if your threshold is 30 with that population, you will conduct 30 interviews with the same interview questions, and that's where you'll arrive at your data. So you're ensuring reliability. If you're doing quantitative, you're pulling maybe 300 surveys of a population that you've selected, and then you send out those surveys, and you're wanting to get so many respondents back, and you're analyzing again the details. You're ensuring what we call reliability of your research, and you're looking for the precise words that the population is using. You're avoiding any particular bias that might come, and so that's going to be important as you write your chapter 3, that you may have to include a statement on bias depending on where you're coming from. So if you're associated with that group or that denomination or organization, again, you're going to have to make a statement on bias to, again, assure reliability with your research. Now, reliability also concerns with the more the population that we have, the more observed, the less likely your research will have subjectivity. So we're after quantity in this case. That also ensures reliability. But that doesn't mean, depending on your methodological design, we could be looking at rich descriptors, themes, emergent patterns within a qualitative design set that we may not see in quantitative. So again, depending on the scope of your research, where you want to go, what you're trying to analyze, it's going to depend. Both have strong sets of why we use either both quantitative or qualitative design theory toward that research area. Now, so what must be done to ensure reliability? Well, there's different ways we can do it. As you read your textbook, you'll arrive at a few that stand out. You can do a test, a retest model. You can do a split half method, where you're looking at your population and splitting them in half and doing a random test on the population on the same question, but you randomize it because you're wanting to get a different angle at the material that you've sent out. And so there's different ways to get after the data that most interests you, that stands as the peak of your research. Now, again, the tests and reliability, the retest option is, you can see the comparison between the two questionnaires, and they're arriving at the same level. And so I feel I do not have much proud of, and again, on the whole, I'm satisfied with myself, and we're arriving at the same number, but the questionnaire number is going to change. And so we talk about randomizing your sample or your population survey depending on the sample you're after. Okay, so we move toward validity, and again, it's a measurement piece. You're accurately reflecting the concept that is intended to measure. You're covering face validity. You're covering what we call criteria-related validity, and this is all coming from your textbook, so you should have read this at this point, or at least covering it this week, talking about construct validity. Where's that meaning coming from? Is it coming from the literature? Has it been defined by the literature? Or are you arriving at your own understanding of it, and you need to avoid that as well? And then content validity. So don't be confused that validity, don't confuse validity with reliability. I think that's often comes into researchers' research process, they confuse both terms and then they lose meaning in regards to their research. So what I like to do is talk about the researcher measuring what they said they would measure. That's an important statement there on the PowerPoint. You're going to measure what you said you're going to measure. And so whatever you write and whatever you work through in terms of the research proposal, the methodology, here are my steps to my research, we're going to be looking for that, or the reader is going to be looking for those steps that you've included in your research. Again, ensures validity. Now, we talk about face validity, and that simply means we take it at face value. The person who's looking at the material says, okay, I can look at it, that's what it is, I don't need any more information, and so we take it at face value. So the frequency of attendance at church service is some indication of a person's religious commitment. We might take that at face value and say, yeah, person who doesn't come to church, they're not really a strong Christian. They may have some matters of issues in their life, but the frequency or the patterns that we see of the individual. So we take that at face value and leave it there. Now, there's criteria-related validity, and again, that's the measurement piece that of relating to external criteria. What outside do we see as a valid statement of our measurement? So a college board test shows a student's ability for success. So we might measure a student's ACT, SAT, and say, generally here's a good raw number that exposes the learner here, and they're going to succeed at college based on these numbers or parameters. And so it's what we call predictive validity in the end. There's construct validity. It's the measurement piece to other variables. So we connect terms or theoretical concepts and relationships that exist in the body of literature, and we're constructing meaning. And that is really important when we talk about your literature section, chapter 2. Don't make that a weak section. That's going to actually bring validity to your research and develop the themes that emerge from the material that you're studying. Now there's content validity, and in content validity, we're looking at a measure that covers the range of meanings included within the concept. And so how broad has this statement been studied? Do we have other research that have come along the way that also have taken the term or the construct and have built it in such a way and studied it within a particular population and then arrive at the meaning behind the field of study? So I hope this sort of helps, or we're building this methodology. We're moving you along through the research phase because we really believe that you got to get this down so that it pushes you forward in your research methodology with accuracy and precision, and it also safeguards your overall research proposal and your finality of research as you move to completion. I hope that encouraged you. If that does not answer any maybe muddy questions along the way, feel free to email me. I'd be glad to interact with you, even in a video conferencing call if needed, in order to move you along in your research. Take care.